You're looking at 3 tiny marks that changed a language forever.
This one made a chunk of gibberish readable. This one removed misunderstandings. And this one has a long history of debate and disagreement, and is often still considered to be redundant. They all have a story of how they came to be. Without them, reading Japanese would be an absolute nightmare. This is the hidden timeline of how Japanese punctuation evolved from classical tradition into the system we know today. Okay, so everything has a beginning, and the beginning of the Japanese punctuation starts with nothing. Literally nothing. Texts written between the 19th century had no punctuation at all. Nothing signaled the end of a sentence. Nothing to tell you if it was spoken out loud or merely quoting what someone said. Readers had to guess breaks using context and rely on classical Japanese grammar to understand how the text flowed. This is not ideal.
Well, for us at least.
They were completely fine. They could get their ideas across and trade things to survive. However, their technology wasn't as shiny and new as their Western counterparts though.
So, starting in 1868, Japan's Meiji era, Japan adopted Western punctuation to follow their print format, and ultimately try to align the whole economy with their neighbors across the ocean.
There were 2 new main punctuation marks introduced in the late 1800s. The Japanese full stop, kuten, or maru, and the Japanese comma, toten. I personally haven't heard these names being used at all because you can just describe them with 日本語の文の終わりに使う小さな丸い記号だよ. I'll use them for the video though because they sound cool. The kuten and toten are fairly easy to use, maybe because they were introduced first. The kuten marks the end of the sentence, similar to the English period, but it's placed at the bottom left of the next box in horizontal text. This is easy to see in genko yoshi because you write 1 Japanese character per box. You can also see it when you type in Japanese like this. There's a gap between the 2 sentences, which you can't see in English text. The toten, on the other hand, is a comma but is written diagonally towards the bottom right. It indicates a pause within a sentence, separates items in lists, or marks clauses, much like the English comma. Big but though. Huge but. They are used less frequently than the English comma. For example, this would be completely fine in English. 3 commas in 1 sentence. Hello, my name is Yamada, and I am 30 years old with 12 years of experience in cross-country. Whereas, if I were to translate this sentence into Japanese, it does not have any commas. Konnichiwa, 30歳でクロスカントリー歴12年の山田です. Many people also try to cut their Japanese sentences into smaller chunks, thinking it will make it easier to understand. 私は昨日スーパーに行って牛乳と卵を買いました. Unfortunately, this is over-punctuated and clunky. It would be much better to remove these commas. 私は昨日スーパーに行って牛乳と卵を買いました. It makes it smoother and easier to understand. Misunderstandings can also occur if you misplace the toten. For example, パン作ったことある? Have you ever made bread? パンツ食ったことある? Have you ever eaten underwear? This would be a spoken misunderstanding because of the kanji, so less common, but you definitely don't want to make that mistake. A more common mistake would be splitting the sentence using the toten in the wrong place. 妹は静かに寝る犬を見た versus 妹は静かに寝る犬を見た. The toten in this sentence is changing what the quietly describes. In the first sentence, quietly is describing how the dog is sleeping, while in the second sentence, quietly is describing how the sister watched the sleeping dog. The Japanese quotation marks, kagikakko and niju kagikakko, act the same way as the English quotation marks. Kagikakko are corner brackets used as single quotation marks for direct speech or quotes. They're common in dialogue-heavy media like novels and manga. Niju kagikakko are double corner brackets, often used in book titles or nested quotes. They are similar to English double quotes, but visually distinct, with the opening at the top left and closing at the bottom right. Now, I said book titles as a use for the niju kagikakko. Since Japanese doesn't have italics, it relies on double quotation marks when quoting book titles. Also, kagikakko are used for emphasis purely because bolding, italics, and other means to emphasize something are commonly just not available to use. So you might see a sign that says, Poolu no migi gawa ni narande kudasai. If you saw this in English, you may think that it's being sarcastic. Please line up on the right side of the pole. Just remember, Japanese uses the kagikakko for emphasis regularly. The interpunct, or in Japanese, nakaguro, is used to separate items in lists or foreign words. Similar to how commas or semicolons are used in English, the interpunct can act as a separator within lists, especially when the items are composed of multiple kanji or kana. It is often cleaner and clearer than a comma in this context. Another more common and critical use is this one. Japanese often writes non-Japanese words, especially names and phrases in katakana. Because katakana strings can be long and ambiguous, the interpunct is used to show where one word ends and the next begins. Tilde, known as the namidashu, is also used in Japanese. You'll see this one between things to mean two. 10時から12時、月曜日から水曜日、大阪から東京. It's also commonly used to be cute. Honestly, everything in Japanese is kawaii. キャー、このぬいぐるみkawaii. この服すごく可愛くない？本当に可愛いよ. Young people in Japan love to use this squiggly symbol with their sentences to make them cute and elongated. The Japanese exclamation mark, kantanfu, or more commonly the bikkuri mark, is used just like its English counterpart to show excitement or surprise. The only difference is that it's usually avoided in formal writing. The Japanese question mark isn't so simple. The question mark, gimonfu, was officially recognized by the Ministry of Education in 1946. If you do the maths, that was actually not that long ago. Even now, question marks are not commonly used in formal writing. Instead, the grammar point ka is placed at the end of the sentence to indicate that the sentence is a question. In formal writing, such as academic papers or government documents, question marks were historically avoided since the ka was already used instead. Finally though, after Japan not allowing question marks to be used in government documents for an insanely long time, they officially announced in 2022 that they could be used. I find that so crazy. That's formal sentences. If casual sentences are written down, they're easier to know if they're a question since they use question marks. If you see the question mark, you know it's a question. However, with spoken casual Japanese, that question mark means that the end of the sentence gets inflected upwards like this. You can't say, 朝ごはん食べた疑問符. Well, because, yeah. I wish I could see question marks when someone asks a question, but that's not possible. For example, when someone asks, お風呂入った? And the inflection at the end isn't clear, I think they said, お風呂入った. So I said, わかった、ありがとう. And they're really confused because they asked, did you take a bath? And I responded with, okay, thanks. Instant messaging opened up a new type of punctuation that would not have been possible before. Now we have Kaomojis and Emojis to use instead of punctuation in text messaging. Kaomoji are a combination of symbols that look like expressions. The word Kaomoji comes from the Japanese words kao, which means face, and moji, which means character. We can thank Wakabayashi Yasushi, yes, he has sushi in his name, for the oldest recorded instance of the Kaomoji, appearing on an online bulletin board in 1986, which is this smile one here. Emojis, which are not made of symbols but instead of small digital images, were created more than 10 years later. The first emoji was created by Shigetaka Kurita in 1999 for this Japanese mobile phone company's keyboard. That was 1999. A lot of time has passed since then, and during that time, technology has developed rapidly. Everything is getting digitalized, to the messages we send, to to the entertainment we seek and even the books we read, is all moved online. Sadly, watching this video isn't going to magically make you fluent. In order to master Japanese, you'll need to actually use the punctuation you learnt in this video. My physical textbook that I made, Japanese Made Fun, does just that. It allows you to write directly in it while learning the essential N5 level Japanese. From the basics of hiragana to the essential kanji, this book covers everything you need to know at an N5 level. I've also had a lot of experience with your average textbook. So when creating Japanese Made Fun, I knew I had to make learning Japanese something enjoyable that you can look forward to every day. So I decided to structure the textbook around a story that takes you to various periods of Japanese history, uncovering cultural highlights as you progress. What's great is that my textbook is physical, so you can write things you learned down on paper. It's much easier to look back at your progress and more effective than learning online. To start learning Japanese the fun way, go to this link, scan the QR code, or click the link in the description. Both Kaomojis and Emojis are similarly used. You can place them at the end of your sentence to add some emotion that can't be expressed with the lack of vocal inflections. Thank you! So boring. OMG! The usual punctuation we use has been replaced with emojis and kaomojis. Kuten, gimonfu, kantanfu. They're too bland for the taste buds of modern society. People can now visually show the specific type of emotion you're feeling through a combination of brackets, underscores, random lines and symbols, and Japanese characters. From kuten to gimonfu, kaki-kakko to nakaguro, Japanese punctuation has evolved over the years. But one thing hasn't changed. The simple period and comma will always be the go-to punctuation.